The movie opens up in an apocalyptic world which has been ravaged because of an unknown reason. The once thriving humanity has been laid to complete waste, as only a few survivors remain. Among them is our protagonist, Juliet, who is driving through a desolate city. She is part of a 30-member clan who has somehow managed to survive the harsh conditions. Currently, Juliet is on a mission to look for any edible resources. Inside her van, we see a gun and a picture of herself with her ex-lover, Jack. It appears that he didn't survive the apocalypse. After a while, Juliet enters an abandoned gas station, hoping to find anything useful. She carefully steps inside, ready to shoot whatever lies ahead. When Juliet doesn't find anything, though, she decides to take a short rest. But just then, her sleep is disturbed by a growling sound coming from the upper floor. Juliet is terrified by the noise, so she immediately rushes to her van and leaves. It is evident that something dangerous and scary is inhabiting this apocalyptic wasteland. In the next scene, Juliet communicates with the leader of her clan, Harry. He inquires if she found anything useful, to which she replies in the negative. He then asks her to stay out of danger and get back to their hideout as soon as possible. Juliet agrees, and after she ends the call, she takes a shortcut, since her van's batteries are running out. On her way, she comes across an RV where she finds a fatally wounded man. With his last breaths, he pleads with her to end his misery. However, Juliet dismisses his request, asserting that she doesn't want to waste her bullets on him. She then asks if there's any food inside the RV, to which the man says yes. But he also warns her that the creature, also known as the Reaper, is locked inside. Hearing this, Juliet contemplates for a while, and eventually decides to go inside. As soon as she enters, a few gunshots are heard and the windows shatter. Juliet has managed to kill the barbaric Reaper, but when she steps outside, the poor man has already died. Following this, Juliet gathers all of his supplies, loads them into her van, and leaves. While on the road, she seems to be in a hurry, as it is revealed that the Reapers only come out at night. They're scared of the daylight and spend most of the daytime under shade. Meanwhile, as Juliet is driving, a gust of wind suddenly blows her picture away. This distracts her momentarily, causing her van to skid off track and flip over multiple times. The impact knocks Juliet out, and with this, the movie goes into a flashback. Several years ago, before the apocalypse took place, Juliet is seen standing in an art gallery. The owner of the place, Jack, approaches her and tries to engage in a conversation. However, Juliet is uninterested. She reveals that she's here for the food, and also because it's raining outside. Jack doesn't seem to mind this, so he shows her a painting and asks her to observe it closely. Juliet rudely comments that it is ugly, but Jack tells her to look into its inner beauty, as everything is artificial. As the two continue talking, they become more comfortable with each other. After the exhibition ends, Jack suddenly asks Juliet if she would like to see his place. The latter agrees without much thought, and the two head there. Upon arriving, Juliet is astonished by his apartment, which appears to be lavish. Jack then offers her some wine and cheese, and the two engage in further conversation. However, when Jack starts asking about her personal life, she becomes suspicious of his motives and abruptly leaves. The following night, the two once again cross paths. This time, Jack spots her in a bar where she is with another man. Surprisingly, she hands him some narcotics, revealing that she is a dealer. Later, a deeply curious Jack tails her to her apartment and learns that her situation is really bad. She is living among other narcotic dealers in very grim conditions. When Juliet finally notices Jack, she becomes angry and starts berating him. Jack attempts to console her and even proposes to help her, but she refuses. At last, when Juliet injects a substance in her veins, Jack realizes that she is an addict too. Hence, he leaves the place, disappointed. Several weeks pass by, and one day, a bruised Juliet suddenly shows up at his apartment. Jack doesn't even ask what happened, and he begins tending to her wounds. He then cleans her up and leaves her to rest in his room. The next morning, Juliet wakes up feeling better and joins Jack for breakfast. Once they are done, Juliet requests that she be let out for a while, claiming that she needs some fresh air. However, Jack knows that she desperately wants to inject the substance again. He locks all the doors, and as a result, Juliet becomes livid. She begins smashing different objects in his room, demanding that he release her. However, Jack just lets her release her anger. When she calms down, he holds her tight and eventually kisses her. This serves as the beginning of their tragic and heartbreaking relationship. Several weeks later, Jack buys a new house in the outskirts of the city, which he feels is perfect for Juliet. As they move in together, she feels a bit nervous, as this is a big step in her life. In response, Jack lovingly touches her face, saying he will always be there for her. Later, he shows her around the place and explains that this is where their children will grow up. Juliet, like always, is skeptical, as she isn't sure if she is ready to be a mother. However, Jack tells her that the most important thing is that they are together. They will surely make it work. His prediction turns out to be true, as just a few months later, Juliet becomes pregnant. She reveals the news to him, making him excited. Unfortunately, things quickly take a dark turn, as the baby is stillborn due to Juliet's past drug use. This causes a significant impact on the couple's relationship, and Juliet goes into a relapse. Being the perfect man that he is, Jack still puts up with her and always tries to make her feel better. However, one night, he finally snaps. Jack is tired of Juliet running away every day to meet her junkie friends. In a fit of rage, he breaks up with her, leaves the car, and decides to use the subway instead. Hours later, as Juliet is having drinks in a bar, a news channel reports that there was a deadly chemical attack in the subway, which has claimed the lives of more than 30 people. This scares Juliet as she realizes that Jack was in the same subway, hence she immediately rushes to see him. In the next scene, Juliet arrives at the hospital, where Jack is admitted in the intensive care unit. His larynx and trachea were burned because of the chemical attack, leaving him unable to speak. Juliet goes near his room, which is separated by a thick layer of plastic, and apologizes for what happened. In response, Jack uses a whiteboard and a marker to express his emotions. Even in this critical state, he mentions that he loves her and asks her to never give up. This makes Juliet hopeful of his survival. However, the next morning, when she enters his room, she learns that Jack passed away due to his injuries, leaving her utterly devastated. The movie then flashes back to the present, where Juliet finally regains consciousness. She feels a sharp pain in her leg, as a bone appears to be sticking out. To make matters worse, her gun is a few feet away from her. Since it is already nighttime, Juliet fears that she will be eaten alive by the Reapers. Hence, she decides to take matters into her own hands. After a lot of effort, Juliet somehow manages to free her leg from under the steering wheel. She then pushes her fractured bone back in place, washes the wound with alcohol, and makes a tourniquet for herself. The pain is excruciating, but it is her only hope of survival. After this, Juliet grabs her radio and attempts to call Harry, but the signal is too weak. Suddenly, she hears footsteps approaching her way, so she quickly grabs her gun and hides inside the van. We are then finally given a glimpse of this Reaper. The legs appear to be similar to that of a deformed human being. Juliet nervously watches from under the van, hoping the Reaper won't see her, but unfortunately, Harry calls her at the same time, causing her radio to beep. Panicked, she throws away the radio to distract the creature. Juliet is certain that she will be found, but to her good luck, the Reaper hears something in the distance and walks away. A few hours pass by, and Juliet throws some glow sticks outside to check if the Reapers are nearby. When she spots no one, she slowly moves ahead, still unaware of her surroundings. Just then, Juliet hears a sound, and when she turns around, she spots the deadly Reaper on top of her van. Terrified, she shoots at it once before returning to her hideout inside the van. She waits for the creature to come, pointing her gun in that direction. However, the Reaper appears from behind and yanks the window cover, taking Juliet by complete surprise. Its face appears to be completely deformed, as if the flesh has melted away. Juliet struggles to break free, and when nothing works, she starts the car and presses down the accelerator. Luckily, the wheels start moving, and this hurts the monster, causing it to retreat momentarily. After the close call, Juliet finally fixes her radio and contacts Harry. She frantically tells him that she's being attacked by a Reaper in the middle of nowhere. Harry promises to come for help, but for that, he will need her exact location. So, he asks her to turn on the beacon located inside the van. Juliet does as told, and finally gets the device to work. But when she looks around, she notices that the Reaper is back. It launches a deadly attack on her, but in the nick of time, Juliet turns on the headlights, causing the Reaper to run away in agony. After this, she again receives a call from Harry, who mentions that he has tracked her location, but unfortunately, he won't be able to arrive until the morning, as it is too dangerous right now. This leaves Juliet devastated, as she realizes that she is on her own now. A while later, she hears a vehicle pass by, so she desperately honks the horn for help. A man hears it and approaches her van. Unfortunately, he turns out to be a cannibal. He forcibly enters the van and attempts to stab Juliet, but right then, the Reaper shows up. It menacingly drags the man out and kills him. As the Reaper feasts on the cannibal, Juliet thinks of committing the unthinkable, but just then, she remembers Jack's final words, who asked her to never give up. This gives her enough motivation to keep living, so she decides to fight back. In a final act of desperation, Juliet brings out 2 fuel canisters. She then lights a flare and waves it around to attract the Reaper. When it eventually shows up, she leads it to the gas containers. Juliet then strategically shoots at them, causing them to explode. But, to her dismay, the cunning Reaper manages to run away without being harmed. After this, a fight ensues between the two. The Reaper keeps dragging Juliet around, but for some reason, doesn't harm her. Taking advantage of this, she shoots it twice at point-blank range, seemingly finishing it off. But when the sun finally rises. The Reaper appears to be alive. Juliet tries to shoot at it once again, but she has run out of bullets. As she hurriedly reloads her gun, the Reaper climbs on top of her. When it gently touches her face, it finally dawns on Juliet that the monster is none other than the love of her life, Jack. All this while, he was only trying to get close to her and be with her. Despite being a monster now, he still has the same feelings for Juliet he once had. Overwhelmed with emotions, Juliet goes into a flashback and remembers the time when Jack asked her to observe the painting. He had told her to see the inner beauty, as everything is artificial. In the present, Juliet, in tears, tells Jack that she loves him a lot. Then, in a tragic ending, she points her gun at both of them, finishing it all.